May is here, and that means another month of brand new bourbon and whiskey releases that are about to hit the shelves. And in this video, I've broken down a list of 12 different bottles I think you should be keeping an eye out for as you head out to the liquor store. And trust me, I know not every single bottle is going to pertain to you, but there are definitely some interesting ones you're going to want to keep an eye out for. So with that said, grab a glass of your favorite whiskey and let's jump right into the list. Welcome in everybody, my name is Brandon Spinner, the Whiskey Weatherman, and you've stormed yourself into the one YouTube channel where it is always whiskey weather. Before we jump into the list, I do have a question for you. What was the biggest find that you had in the month of April? Drop that in the comment section below. As for me, I was lucky enough to stumble upon this Jack Daniel's 14 year on the last day of the month. Super excited for it, especially after that review I did a couple of days ago for my friend Ajay. So I want to know what your best find was. Drop that in the comments and let's get right into my list. Starting out at number one, it's going to be a bottle that I will always recommend in the month of May, and that is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, and this is going to be batch B525. Now A125 wasn't terribly exciting for me, it was just okay. I generally tend to like the B and the C batches more than the A batches. Not a whole lot of information about this year's release yet. It hasn't been announced from Heaven Hill, but being that it is a 525, that means May of 2025, so at some point throughout the month, you're likely to see that hit the shelves. Retail price right at $74.99 as always. Hopefully you're able to find it at a Costco like mine, where they usually have them for about $68.99, which is always a buy for me. And that leads right into the next bottle coming from Heaven Hill as well, and that is Larceny Barrel Proof B525. Again, no real age statement on this. It's usually between 4 and 7 years old. The price point at $64.99. We don't know what the proof is, but the last several years, the Larceny Barrel Proof releases have been absolute bangers from Heaven Hill. So if you're a fan of wheated bourbon, if you're a fan of anything from Heaven Hill, you're going to want to definitely grab one of those two over the next couple of weeks, as you should start to see those roll out. Now, checking in at number 3, coming from a brand I absolutely adore, and that is Barrel Craft Spirits. They're going to be releasing batch 37 of their bourbon. This is batch 36. I absolutely loved last year's. You can check out my review up there on the top right of your screen, but they usually knock these blends out of the park. This year, it's a 7 different bourbon blend with 8-year-old, 11-year-old, and 12-year-old bourbons out of Indiana, a 10-year-old Kentucky bourbon, and then a 13, 14, and 15-year-old bourbon blend out of Tennessee, most likely coming from Dickel. This does have a price point of $84.99, and that's a little bit higher up there, but when you consider there are 8 to 15-year-old bourbons within this blend, it's actually not a bad deal, and they usually knock it out of the park. So if you're in that edge of 85 to 100 degrees, excuse me, that's the weather portion coming out of me. $85 to $100. This is definitely one I think you should probably splurge on. The proof point is 111 this year, and the mash bill I think is derived at 78% corn, 18% rye, and 4% malted barley. Definitely something that is worth checking out, especially if you like blended bourbon. Now, checking in at number 4, probably the most unique bottle on this list, and I gotta be honest, this is probably the year of the tequila finish. This one is the tequila finished bourbon from Woodinville. Now, I gotta be honest and fully transparent, I've never had anything from Woodinville, but all of my friends and buddies who drink bourbon and whiskey seem to love this, at least the Woodinville bourbon. I do think that this might not be for everybody, as I mentioned earlier on in the video, but it's definitely something worth keeping an eye on. So from what I've read, these are finished in extra añejo tequila barrels, something different, might not be for everybody, but this is a slightly higher price point, right around $70. The good thing is, I will say, most of the bottles on this list are below that $100 price point. So we're trying to keep them cheap this month, or at least cheaper or lower in price. Not trying to say it's cheaper, but this is a 5-year-old whiskey. That's why I do think that it's a little bit higher in price, probably getting that price from the tequila barrels, and it checks in at 100 proof. The first 500 bottles will be only available at the distillery, and then I think they were right around 2,000 for this release. The rest will be an online release from what I've been told. You might be able to find these in stores, but you're going to want to check out Woodinville's website, which I'll have linked down in the description below. But that is checking in at number 4. Now, number 5 is one that I actually have to make a correction to. In my last video, which I broke down 10 bottles I thought you should be hunting for in the month of April, I had this one as right there at the top, and that is the Old Fitzgerald 7-year-old bottled in bond. The one correction I have to make, it was supposed to be released in April. I think they were a little bit delayed in that release. You should start to see it here in the month of May, but that correction is that I've been told that the price is slightly cheaper $49.99 rather than an MSRP of $59.99. Much more palatable, especially for that 7-year age statement, and also coming in at 100 proof. If you want more details on that release, I've got that in that previous video for bourbons that you should be hunting for in the month of April, but certainly one that I'll be keeping an eye on, especially now that that price point is about $10 cheaper. So that Old Fitzgerald 7-year checks in for my number 5. As for number 6, part of the reason why I think Old Fitz has been dropped down a few dollars by Heaven Hill, and that's Old Granddad Bottle and Bond, 7-year-old. So another 7-year-old Bottle and Bond. This comes from Jim Beam. Old Granddad, if you're a fan of the regular Bottle and Bond, this is going to be slightly higher age statement, checking in right at 100 proof. This was distilled in the spring of 2018, and of course bottled here in early 2025. It's got that high rye mash bill from Jim Beam, so if you're a fan of that, you're going to probably want to be on the hunt for this, but this is much cheaper, $39.99, so a whole $10 lower than what Heaven Hill's thrown out for their Old Fitz 7-year. The two bottles are different because one is a high rye and the other one's a wheater, but I do think more people are probably going to gravitate towards that $40 bottle, despite the better or cool looking bottle from Old Fitz 7. Either way, both should be relatively affordable for most people. And as we go throughout the next couple of months, they're both expected to be shelfers as we get towards the end of the year after probably being allocated for the early part of their release. So there's the first half of my list. And before we jump into the back half, I gotta ask, if you have enjoyed this video so far, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below and share this with your bourbon loving friends and ask them which bottles they'll be hunting for here in the month of May. Now checking in at number 7, not actually a bourbon, but a single malt. New Riff's Single Malt 2025 edition, which is already available. It dropped at the distillery on May 2nd. This is a blend of 3 different mash bills aged for 7 to 10 years old. So you're getting some of the oldest whiskey that New Riff has ever distilled. And then it is finished in 6 different types of casks. Now the 3 different blends, the master distiller himself and old brewers. So we've got a little beer inspired mash bill coming from them with some barley wine, but the other 2, we're talking Maris Otter, never heard of that, but it's pretty interesting to me. And then also some Scottish peated barley as part of that. As for the finishes, I think they've got some Oloroso sherry, Madeira, along with some recharred and reused barrels. And I do think there were some red wine casks in there as well. Either way, a very unique and different one. And if you're a fan of single malt, this is something you should certainly keep an eye out. As I mentioned, it's already hit the shelves, $70. It's a little bit higher compared to other bottles that I had on this list, but thinking that there's 7 to 10-year-old whiskeys in that, not a bad price. As for number 8, this is going to be the most expensive bottle on my list, but it's not going to be a bottle that everybody's going to seek out, and that is Little Book Chapter 9 coming from Jim Beam. It is definitely a collector's edition bottle. A lot of folks try to collect all the chapters. We're at chapter number 9. No real information about what the proof point or the age statement on this is going to be because we're still waiting on word from the blend. They are hosting a dinner at Jim Beam on May 14th, which will likely hear information about what the actual blend is from there, or if we start to see some things leaked out. So keep an eye out for that, but I know that this is a higher price point for a lot of folks, so you may not necessarily be on the hunt for that. I would wait to see some reviews over the next couple of weeks before you start to shell out that cash. But if that is a bottle that you'd like for your collection, just know that drops here in the month of May. As for number 9, a bottle that I'll be keeping an eye out for, it's relatively cheap considering the age statement. It's an 8-year cask strength bourbon from Jefferson's Reserve. And now Jefferson Reserve, not a distillery that I really have a whole lot of knowledge about or have had a ton of pours from, but I'm intrigued by this one. It's 8 years old. It comes in at $70 and it's a proof point of 130 proof. So proof chasers probably gonna love this one. That's close to those Booker proof points as well. So if you're a fan of Bookers, if you're a fan of Elijah Craig, especially at that price point of $70, you might wanna give this one a go. It's non-chill filtered. Certainly one that I'll definitely keep an eye out for, and it might be the first bottle of Jefferson's that I've ever owned. Number 10 and number 11 are probably going to be the most unique whiskeys on this list, and it's gonna be for a certain fan base. We're talking the Star Trek fan base, and this is going to be the longest and hardest name to say. This is the Star Trek Spirits Romulan Stellum Cask Strength Whiskey, and there's also a rye component as well. So 2 different bottles, one regular whiskey that's blended and another one that is rye. You hear the name Stellum, that is another kind of spin-off from Barrelcraft Spirits. Stellum, you may have remembered a lot of their releases from a few years ago. Haven't heard much from them as of late, but they are teaming up with Star Trek Spirits to create this Romulan Stellum cask, which I guess Romulan, am I even saying that wrong? I'm probably saying it wrong. You guys, Trekkies, let me know. So Romulan Ale is, I guess, something from the Star Trek series. I haven't ever watched it, so I'm not going to be on the hunt for these bottles, but I wanted to include this on the list for those of you who were Star Trek fans. So that's something you'll probably want to check out the website for, because I think that's where they're only releasing that at $79.99 per bottle. Kind of unique, kind of cool. Just not for me. And finally, number 12. This is going to be a bottle that is completely unique and different for this distillery, because they've never distilled a different mash bill until this. And that is from Maker's Mark, their Star Hill Farms whiskey. This is a wheat whiskey. It's going to have a $100 MSRP. Proof points right around 115. I think it was 114.7 or something along those lines. And the price point, well, at $100, you're getting 7-year-old whiskey that also has some 8-year whiskeys within it as well. This is supposedly going to be a series that changes every year. They're going to have a different portion to this blend, but this is the start of this, and it's going to be in the US, I believe Europe, and Australia a little bit later here in 2025. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's 70% red wheat, as well as 30% malted barley on one of the mash bills, and then 100% malted soft red winter wheat for the other mash bill that they were all blended together. Something really unique. It's actually cool to see Maker's Mark do something different outside of their wood finishing series. So this would be something that I'd be looking for. Well, probably to just grab a pour of before I buy the full bottle. And this one's not going to have the red wax on it. So that might be a collector's item as well. So there's my list for the 12 bottles I think you should be keeping an eye out for here in the month of May. If you did enjoy this video and got some value out of it, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button below. But the best way to support this channel would be to share this video with some of your bourbon and whiskey loving friends and ask them which of the 12 bottles they're most excited for as we move out throughout the next few weeks. As for supporting this channel, have to give a big shout out to all of my Patreon and YouTube members. I call them the Storm Chasing Community, and we go from EF0 to EF5. They get first dibs on all barrel picks, and I've got a bunch of barrel picks coming up over the next few weeks. So if you do want to be the first one to get access to that, consider joining the Storm Chaser Patreon community. Well, thank you for giving me your time today. I end this the same way I end all my other videos. Please remember to drink responsibly, but that it is always whiskey weather. If you enjoyed this video, you're going to like some of my other bourbon and whiskey reviews right there on the top right of your screen. We'll see you in those videos. Cheers, y'all.